Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me on my latest recording. I really appreciate it. I appreciate obviously all the comments and emails that I've received since the live stream I've done as well. Thank you very much for that. It's much appreciated. So obviously in this video I'm going to talk about Labour's war on free speech and democracy because that's what it is. I mean, democracy, as I've said before, it doesn't actually mean what you think it does. It's just slavery posing as freedom. Really, it seems like it's democracy, freedom of speech, and freedom on the face of it. But when it comes to it, you're no freer than anybody else has ever been in the past. But as many people have said before, you do not rebel against being a slave if you think you're free, and that all goes in with the manufacturing of consent. This is why they need to manufacture your consent, because they need you to believe that you are not a slave, that you are indeed free. We're like free-range chickens. We just can't see the bars. We're in mind prisons. We're in a prison where we're worried of what other people think of us. We're in prisons where we're worried we're going to offend people, and we keep ourselves in prisons that stops us living our dreams. And not because some scientist with letters after his name, or you're worried what they think. It's more to do with the people that seem to be in your life, although more and more of us are breaking out of that social construct, fortunately, and I don't think we're going to get anywhere until we do break out of social constructs such as the one I've just mentioned. Now, I get it, like when you're at a certain level, you don't want. I mean, I always had to be sitting with someone. Not always. Like there was times where I liked it on, but most of the time you need to be sitting with someone, and you need to get out. You need to learn to spend time on your own. I know it seems boring in the beginning, like, but you will get there, because it's the best thing for all of us. It's the only time we get to sort of get to know ourselves, especially now with the world quickening, information coming in ever quicker. And the streets are basically on fire at the moment. Now, Labour, at one time, were the party of the people. It was said they were the left. It was the coal miners, all people like that. I'm not sure, like your Arthur Scargills and Ken Livingstones for the 80s. I'm not sure if they were on the left, although they probably were. I should have checked that. But you know what I'm saying. It was supposed to be the workers' party, if you like, where the people that were doing sort of everyday jobs, working class people, it was a voice for them. Unfortunately, since Tony Blair had came into power with Labour, that had all changed. They just became the Red Tories. Now, I know obviously it was a different time in 1997, but the three parties that are in Britain, the symbols that are used for the three is the dove, the rose, and the lighted torch, which is all Babylonian symbolism. Dove relates to Queen Semiramis, Great Queen Street, all that type of thing, which is going to be part of my next video with the British Empire. But it is all connected, and the dove is said to mean Columb, or Columb means dove in French, and then you had Christopher Columbus and all that type of thing as well, which also relates to Queen Semiramis. So, and then the rose is like the Rosicrucians, and like I say, the lighted torch as well for the Lib Dems. They lit the lighted torches everywhere. It's been put where Diana was killed. It's been put in places to commemorate JFK, people like that. So, and it's to put their stamp on it. And then when you start to learn that stuff, and then you see it on the parties of the people in your own country, I mean, it does make you wonder. Now, Labour are no different. It's a one-party state. It always has been. It's never been more obvious than that now. Back in the days that I've just spoken about there, in the days of the coal mining strikes and all the rest of it, things were different then. There was more of a facet on it for people to sort of act for the working class person, and they did do it. Although the manipulations were carried through, it was still the same one-party state we have just now. But this was before the final play, if you like, so they could kind of get away with sort of doing more for the people to then manipulate us to believe that late parties like Labour were there for the people and only for the people, forgetting to mention that they were actually working covertly to bring in this left-wing tyranny that we're all so familiar with now. Now, when you see people like Keir Starmer, who is obviously now the Prime Minister, jailing people for having an opinion, you know there's something wrong. And I had a look back at the start of Nazi Germany, and it's really not that different to what's happening now. Because at the time you had the brown shirts, which are the SA. They were the stormtroopers on the street fighting with the Rot Front, I think they were called. Let me just double check that. Yeah, the Rot Front, which was the communists, and it gave Hitler the excuse to commit the crime of the Night of the Long Knives. Now we've not had that yet, and it'll obviously be in a different disguise now. But if you go back and research the Night of the Long Knives and just read on it for 10 minutes, and it won't be long before you see that you're actually reading about a real life scene from a gangster movie, because that's what it was. Now that gave Hitler the excuse, when all this chaos was ensuing on the streets of Germany, it gave him the excuse to shut everything down. He made everything else illegal except the Nazi Party, which is itself now illegal. Hopefully maybe Labour and Conservatives and that system will be made illegal after we're done here, but he made everything illegal. He shut down debate, he put people in jail that he didn't like, he killed people that he didn't like, and he started false flag fires in the Reichstag, which is the German parliament, to basically it was to give them the excuse to take all these powers. That's why it was done. False flags have been used in the intelligence industry for a very, very long time. Centuries it's been used for. The Great Fire of London's a good example of it. Obviously 9/11's another. But this is what these people do to garner their consent from their subjects. Because no turkey's going to vote for Christmas knowing what they're voting for. So that's why they need to sort of put these, because people say to me all the time, what's the point of it? What is the point of it? Well, that's the point of it. It's to get a turkey to vote for Christmas. And I'm not saying people are turkeys, it's just an analogy. But that's, I mean, some people are like, the way you see them running about on the left is just, I mean, some of these lefties you see online on a daily basis are just embarrassing. They're an embarrassment and they're vile. But they've been told basically that you've been marginalised and it's nothing to do with you and it's everything to do with people like me, who have made your life difficult and that you've not been given a chance. So that then, when a state comes out and appears to support people like that, it then gets those people on side. And you're not allowed to say anything to them. You're only allowed an opinion if these people agree with it. And it would appear that Keir Starmer is no different. Now, when you look at the gangs that are infiltrating Britain at the moment, it was down in Southend, there's people that are afraid to go out on the street. And these gangs, obviously we've had a problem with gang culture in Scotland and in obviously England as well. But it seems to be dying down. I'm not saying it's completely gone, but it doesn't seem, I mean, I hear it all the time about Glasgow. It's the knife crime in Glasgow is nowhere near as bad now as it was in sort of 2006, 2007, round about that. And certainly when I lived up that area, it's nowhere near as bad. So it would appear consciousness people are starting to see that it's not worth it and the vibrations are rising. But this will be why they're bringing in gangs from across in places where we're not at our level of society and consciousness, that are still sort of living in medieval times with regards to them swinging machetes and stuff like that. And Keir Starmer and Labour are quite happy for those people to come in. Yvette Cooper claims that she's going to start, well, it was claimed the other day there that they were stopping extradition of violent criminals. She now claims that she's going to be sending these violent criminals back. We'll wait and see what happens. She also says that we need to stop young people getting radicalised online. Now, I don't know if she means extremism, she's saying, radicalised from extremism. Now, I've been called an extremist many times. Is that what she means? Does she mean the young people that are starting to wake up to the bloody truth of the fact that they've been living in a Ponzi scheme, and so has their parents and their grandparents before them? And like myself, they were the one that had to inform their parents of that. And I can tell you, it goes down like a lead balloon. It took me years to get my family to listen, and it wasn't until COVID came around that they did start to listen. So, is this the people that she's saying need to stop being radicalised? Don't tell them the truth. Believe in our narrative. How is that any different to what the Nazis done? And the left, I know they're right, but the left's no different. It's two sides of the same coin. It's what David Icke would call an opposame. They seem to be opposites, but they've got the same state of mind, no different. It's like, and this is exactly how he put it, you've got the far right, which was the Nazis, which were into centralised control, concentration camps and military dictatorships. You've got the far left, which were into centralised control, concentration camps and military dictatorships. It's just the same, it's no different, even though they were at war. Because they're used, it's the old Hegelian dialect scam again, to get people to inform their consent, or to give their consent to this new society. And then once the new society's in, there's nothing you can do about it. That's what Hitler done. And I would imagine a lot of people in Germany would have been very, very frightened after he came to power, because they would have realised that what he was saying before he came to power, well, before he became dictator anyway, because he became the Chancellor first while Hindenburg was still alive, and then it was when he died he took over. It's like a mafia film, honestly, it's like something from a mafia movie. And then he took power when he died in 1934, Hindenburg, the president. So the people after that, and seeing his actions after that, when he became the first Chancellor and dictator of Germany, they would have been very, very frightened. And I can tell you now, the lefties that are out in the streets fighting and Just Stop Oil and vandalising bloody Stonehenge and vandalising statues and demanding paybacks from white people generations later, when this goes down, or if it was to go down in full, then they will be the first to obviously suffer for that. And I can guarantee you, well, the people like me would probably suffer first, but they wouldn't be far behind me. Now, when you're being jailed for an opinion, it's obviously, there's people that's been jailed for things recently over the last month that even 6 months ago, if someone had told you they'd been jailed for that, or their family member had been jailed for that, you would never have believed them. But here we are. Now, there was one lady in particular who, I think, was she the carer, who had said, blow the mosques up. Now, I don't think she can have too many complaints, because that's inciting violence. There's one thing having I'm not saying it's right that she was thrown in jail for that. She should definitely have been consequence for it. But jail, I'm not sure. But I don't know if she can have too many complaints. I don't agree with she's been put in jail, but when you start saying stuff like that online, knowing someone like Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves and Yvette Cooper are sort of hanging in the wind waiting for you to put something like that, then it was very, very stupid to do so. And I understand that tensions are high and people are angry and they're worried and they're scared, but it was a stupid thing to do, to put that tweet out like that. Like I said, I don't agree with the fact she was in jail. She should have been consequenced, like a fine or something like that. And maybe that's why they did jail her, because they thought, well, if we don't, they're going to have more of this, which can incite more violence. But which again, as I've said many times, a conscious person who's raised their vibration will absolutely not entertain violence. And that's coming from someone that used to use violence quite frequently. And I'm not ashamed to admit that. I did. I used, if I felt like I was being picked on, I would use violence, because that's what I was taught when I was younger from the area I was from. Because in that area, and that's the difference between that area and this area. This area, if a kid goes in and runs to their dad and says, he just hit me, the dad would more often than not go to the other kid's door, and that's probably the way it should happen. And that's the civilised way to do it, to have a discussion. But where I came from, and I've seen this happen, if you had run in and you were crying because somebody hit you, you would get shouted at and you would be told to go and do something about it, or you were going to get walked over the top of for the rest of your life. And that's the difference, and that's the way I looked at things. And it's perhaps not the right way, but it does teach you to sort of look after yourself, because what choice have you got? I mean, if you can't run to your parents, who are you going to run to? It sort of makes you stand on your own 2 feet. The left today, they're not doing that, are they? They're creating weak-minded adults. No consequences, fear of confrontation, don't want to sit down and hash it out because they're worried they might offend. And I don't like confrontation now. And that's what I was going to say before. I've raised my vibration to a point where I know violence doesn't help the situation. It doesn't help me, it doesn't help the person that I commit it on, and it doesn't help the planet. It certainly doesn't help this situation that we've got out on the streets at the moment. So if you're thinking that's the way forward, then I'm sorry, but you really do need to get yourself back to the drawing board, and quickly, because this has happened. Go and look at history and look at how many times this has happened, and the outcomes are always the same. They always get people on side to say, well, yeah, I don't really agree what the government's doing at the moment, but I agree even less with what they're doing. They're right-wing thugs, and it needs to be done. So yes, I'll give up my freedoms and liberties until this is dealt with. And that's the basis for a false flag. And this is why I've questioned the Southport tragedy, and not enough's come out about that, other than the fact that it ticks the first box. It had something to do with the BBC. Now that doesn't mean that it's conspiratorial in any way. It just means a box has been ticked, and it wants more research, which I will do when they release it. But back to obviously the left-wing tyranny, which again is no different to a right-wing tyranny. And this is the thing, when you look at the guy that Keir Starmer had put in to manage the prisons, who had said a couple of months ago in a video he wants the third of the people to be released from jail, violent bloody career criminals, whilst putting in carers who maybe shouldn't have said what they said, but willing to let them go and put them in jail. So that creates further chaos, so that they can offer the order out of that chaos. And then there was like Elon Musk. Look at what they're doing with Elon Musk, and I came across a couple of articles with regards to this. And Elon Musk, I like what he said to was it Starmer? He was in the thing. I can't remember anyway. Whoever it was he was talking to, I can't remember because I just heard Elon Musk talking. And I've got my grievances with Elon Musk, as you see from my video. But it was basically whoever it was he was talking to had said to him, like, well, what do people not need to be protected like immigrants? And Elon Musk correctly said, well, does everyone not need to be protected? Do you not need to be protective of your own people first? And as I've said many times on here, and I said to a friend of mine on Saturday when I was debating this, if you cannot look after your own people, how can you say to another country or other countries that come here and we'll look after you? Would that not make you sceptical as an incoming asylum seeker? But it would have me thinking, I was going to a country who, okay, they were willing to help me, but they weren't helping their own. That would just have me thinking, well, how long would it be before I'm in the same boat as them? And I said this to my friend on Saturday. I'm not talking about British white people only here. I'm talking about the people that's been here for 10 and 15 and 20 years and 25 years and more. I'm talking about them people as well. They're in the same boat as us. So, and now they're saying that Elon Musk is engaging in hate crime with these views. Now, who is it that decides what hate crime is? Well, they do. Now, I'm going to read a bit of the article to you, and this is what it says. The Prime Minister has taken a personal role in directing the police response. I bet he has. This will be why he went through the CPS training. I know most of them are lawyers, most of them are supposed to know the law, but he was groomed for this job, Keir Starmer, and I don't care what anybody says, I'll put my next wage on it. As if he were still a public prosecutor, and this is why they've done it. Do you really think it's a coincidence that the public prosecutor from a few years back is now prosecuting people as Prime Minister for having an opinion? I don't think it is. And his government is now going to attempt to strengthen the regulations of online speech by using powers in the Online Safety Act. And I've actually got that act. I've got a thing, I'll go through it after this. Is in the government's firing line. Online Safety Act. Elon Musk's social media platform, X, is in the government's firing line because he expressed an opinion that he wasn't happy with. that exposed him for what he is, and that's a one-sided Prime Minister. Not because he cares about the people he's one-siding with, but because he's been told to follow an agenda from Davos, who in turn are being directed by the dark families and the black nobility, which is what the next video is going to be about. It has been blamed for spreading so-called misinformation about the riot. So who is it that decides if that's misinformation? I love it how they do that as well. They put it as misinformation. They never call it disinformation. Yes, you're not deliberately doing it. You're just a bit silly and you need re-educated. Yeah, okay, mate, no problem. And previously the Southport murders inciting violence. So he's claiming he's inciting violence. This is what they're using the Online Safety Act for, the hate speech, you know, the rest of it. They decide what that is, so then they can use these powers. This is, like I said, I don't know what we do about this, but we need to stop buying their shite, and we need to stop rioting in streets. And I know the vast majority of us don't believe in that, but the people that are doing it, you need to pull your heads out your arses, like, honestly, because it's not doing any good. It's just making it worse. This week, the European Union chimed in with a fresh threat of censorship to X. European Commissioner Thierry Breton even suggested that live stream footage of riots might even violate the EU's Digital Services Act. So if I was to go and report on that with my phone and just take a video and report it, then... Sorry, I just got a message through there. I lost my train of thought a wee bit. Yeah, if I was to video a riot and I was to put that on, like, say, this YouTube channel, then I would be violating the EU's Digital Services Act. All these acts have been passed over years when we were sitting watching the bloody telly, thinking that, oh, it doesn't matter, everything's fine. Elon Musk has so far responded with the bullish irreverence, almost daring the British government and the EU to go to war with him over free speech. He's got nothing to worry about because he's not in their jurisdiction. So I was reading about that the other day. There, he's already a way back. So he's got. But his dad was actually, funnily enough, was sitting talking to someone on Talk TV the other week there, and he was saying that these guys are dangerous. They'll kill him. Maybe Elon Musk's being rebellious. But if he wants to be rebellious, he'll need to stop rolling out 5G before I'll buy into what he's doing. It goes on to say, the article, Britain today is not the free country she used to be. In the latter part of the 20th century and into the 21st, Parliament has passed a stream of laws restricting speech, and the courts have created a web of precedents around privacy which have restricted it even further. Again, they were doing all this while we were watching the bloody telly. See, these are the things that 2 o'clock in the morning when you're watching the news, you'll just see it flash across the screen so that they can say, well, you can't say, well, you never told us about that. Actually, we did. It's not our fault. We didn't see it. You didn't see it. That's how they get around that. And because they need to do those things, because there is universal laws against taking your free will away, which they're well aware of. The Public Order Act functions like a de facto blasphemy law, and the Communications Act has made it a criminal offence to send offensive jokes on social media, even in private group chats. That, if Hitler had mobile phones and the internet, that would have been on his to-do list. Something along the lines of that. Following the rise of the debunking political speech is also being prosecuted via other means, with financial institutions and regulators utilising ESG rules and codes to remove bank accounts from people whose political views they dislike. So not only are they going to throw you in jail if they don't like what you're saying, but they're going to take your resources from you, from your bank account, which they can go in and take. I suggest you start looking into bail-ins and what it means if you've got over £100,000 in your bank. Freedom of speech goes much further than just the right to offend. Of course it does, because, and this is where it's getting lost in translation here, because there's hate laws against, like, violence and inciting violence and extremism and all that. We've already got laws that cover that. So why do we need more? Because fundamentally they need to shut down debate and free speech, and they need everybody worried about what they're going to say is going to offend somebody, because that way the truth cannot be revealed. It cannot be revealed. Again, look, Night of the Long Knives, go and look at what Hitler done to his opponents to ensure that that didn't happen. Again, it's like something from the Godfather movie. In fact, it makes the Godfather movie look quite tame when you actually see it, and you think this was a man who was running a European country. Go to the paperclip bloody video and you'll see that those people were not prosecuted, mate. Not only were they not prosecuted, but the ones that were, they got released early and given their assets back. Wrap your head around that one. Unsurprisingly, there are many calls for a First Amendment to protect freedom of speech in Britain. This is understandable, but codification of rights does not necessarily solve the issue. After all, the Human Rights Act of 1998 states, everyone has the right to freedom of expression. Not now, obviously. This right shall include freedom to hold opinions and to receive and impart information and ideas without interference by public authority and regardless of frontiers. Now, this is the point, right? They can send out, they've got control of all the media companies, they've got everybody worried about giving an opinion. The thing about that is, right, when you control all the information, yes, you can manipulate people and hold them down, but eventually the human spirit or the human consciousness, something connects. I don't know what it was with me, I genuinely don't know, but something connected, and I just wanted to know things. That's still possible for people to do that at the moment. They want microchips in everyone so that's taken away, it's taken out of the equation. Because they know that yes, their mind control and their propaganda and their powers of persuasion and their use of fear, they've been very, 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 very helpful and they've served them very, very well. However, it doesn't matter, you can go through a lifetime of it and one day you can just wake up like I did. And that is what they're terrified of, because they know that as soon as that happens, the game's over for them. And then they say that all these secrets are kept to protect national security. No, it's to protect your security, mate, to protect your control system. That's why you've bloody hidden it. And that's why you use that excuse, because the vast majority of people will give their consent and say, well, we need our national security kept under lock and key so that we're secure. I think it was Thomas Jefferson that said that people that give up freedom for security deserve neither and will lose both. Well, this sounds nice. It doesn't seem to have protected the countless people from prosecution and prison for matters of speech since 1998. Indeed, when then Labour government passed the Communications Act into law, see, we wouldn't have been aware of that at the time. It signed a statement that some of its provisions were not compatible with the Human Rights Act in preparation for what's going on now. Instead, British free speech advocates would be better focusing their efforts on campaigning to repeal the laws which are restricting speech. No parliament can bind its success thereafter all. So, like I said, they're going to be using that act, the online bloody act that they've got everybody thingying at, and I've got that here. I've got this from the government's website. So this is just them going into. The Act requires all companies to take robust action against illegal content and activity. So who is it that decides that? Who is it that decides on this Online Safety Act? Who is it that decides whether that's illegal or not, or whether it offends? Well, they do. Platforms will be required to implement measures to reduce the risks their services are used for illegal offending. They will also need to put in place systems for removing illegal content when it does appear. So they, again, if they don't like what they're saying, they can just remove it. Search services will also have new duties to take steps to reduce their risks users encounter illegal content via their services. The Act sets out a list of priority offences. These reflect the most serious and prevalent illegal content and activity against which companies must take proactive measures. So it's like everything else. It's like there's things that you can get on board with it. And you can say, well, that's really good, but it's open to interpretation. So the kinds of illegal content and activity that platforms need to protect users from are set out in the Act below, and this includes content relating to child sex abuse, couldn't agree more, controlling or coercive behaviour, extreme sexual violence, extreme pornography, fraud, racially or religiously aggravated public order offences, highlight, inciting violence, highlight, illegal immigration and people smuggling, highlight, promoting or facilitating suicide, intimate image abuse, selling illegal drugs or weapons, highlight because it's going on all the time, sexual exploitation, terrorism, highlight. Terrorism, they actually create a lot of the terrorism to again garner the consent and everybody, oh well, we need to do this, we need this act. It's like the Patriot Act. I've seen it in a TV show once where a DE agent was basically used the Patriot Act, and he says in it, if it was a woman, I'd buy it a steak, because they got so much out of it. They could spy on everyday people, and it was justified because they needed to catch the terrorists that had committed this heinous act, which they had nothing to do with. And that's the thing. They define that because they think we're not intelligent to do so, and that we're just minions, we're just subjects, We need to do what we're told. We're useless eaters, and don't worry, we've got your backs. Well, I'm sorry, but I ain't buying that. I ain't buying that from them, and I think it's time, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm going to say it again, I'm going to keep on saying it, that we need to take responsibility for ourselves. We need to start with governing yourself, and then you'll be able to govern more around you. That's one thing that I've learned from this journey that I've been on over this sort of 10-year and into this 11th year period. And it's had its ups and downs. It has to be. The comfort zone's no place to be, because nothing grows there, and that is the truth. You need to get comfortable being uncomfortable. That seems to be a wee life hack as well. If you can do that, things seem to change around you. But I just wanted to do this again, is to let people know, and I know you don't need to be a genius to see it, just exactly what they do and how they sneak these things in, and to try and regulate your bloody speech so you'll not speak about the truth and you'll not tell the truth, and you'll be worried about saying the truth. And I've seen this loads of times, like, where I've said the truth, and I've watched the person getting visibly stressed and upset because that information, they cannot handle it. It's so bloody challenging, and their subconscious is reminding them, program, social program. I've done it in a shop one day. I was talking to a friend of mine, and this woman was in front of me, clearly in the COVID cult, and she couldn't wait to get out of that shop. And that's what I was saying. I've had it before as well, during the first lockdown, where I was in a post office having a conversation with a woman. It was like 5 months into it, and the woman, she'd had enough, and she'd seen some things as well. She said, well, I think we're being lied to. And I says, well, we're definitely being lied to. At which point this other woman chimed in, who had nothing to do with the conversation, to say that we were both talking shite, basically. And I said, well, how do you know that? Oh, my daughter works for the NHS. I says, well, I don't really give a shit, hen, who your daughter works for. But that test's absolutely useless. And I told her about the test and who designed it. And I said, I'd rather listen to the guy that designed the test than your bloody daughter, who at the time was 20 bloody 1 if she was lucky. So, and this is the thing, this is the ignorance of people. This is what they do. This is what they bloody do when they can't handle it, and they start shouting and screaming and they get angry. It's nonsense. That's bloody nonsense. You're lying, dude. We need to get over that, because that's why the streets are on fire, everyone. Because we've not grown up yet, we've not learned. I said this to my friend on Saturday, we've still not learned, because here we are again, it's happening again, and it's happened before. Check the history books. Thank you very much for watching, I'll see you in the next one.